Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. I'm Emmanuel, I'm an airline pilot, and today we are going to fly the Aerosoft CRJ700 from Denver to Aspen using FS2Crew, and I would like to thank Aerosoft for providing this free copy of FS2Crew. Now, those of you who have seen my videos on the 737 using FS2Crew will probably be aware of what this add-on is, but those of you who are not aware, this is a flight crew add-on that, well, basically adds a crew interaction to the aircraft in question, in this case the CRJ. Now, the SOP that we see in use is one of a particular airline, however it is not disclosed which airline this actually is. And you are going to notice that things are going to be quite a bit different from what they are in the other FS2Crew add-ons, in that there is a lot of stuff done silently, for example flap retraction or the originating checks. So keep that in mind, and if there is anything abnormal that I encounter in the usage of the add-on, I'm going to point it out right as we go along. Now, if we have a quick look into the options that we have available in FS2Crew, then you will see that I am going to use button control mode instead of voice control, and the primary reason for that is that I discovered when I tried to learn FS2Crew for the 737 that it becomes very easy to mix up certain commands and then do them wrong in real life, so I refrained from using voice control on FS2Crew add-ons for now. Apart from that, we can see we have a couple of options there. I have chosen the US female accent for the captain, US male for the first officer, US female for the cabin crew, and we have a couple options up there on the top right, like enable first officer. That basically triggers if the first officer is going to perform any flows or if you want to do it all. Then the enable button below that is to display tooltips, which you can unfortunately not see on screen due to my recording abilities. Then disable FO commands is basically disabling unintended commands when running a checklist. Disable gear flap is an option that allows you to control the gear and the flaps versus the first officer, if you are using specific hardware, for example. Now, the PFE timer option basically accelerates the countdown on the pre-flight events by 2. Now, FS2Crew chose to model a 35-minute turnaround in the CRJ, so if you use this option then the turnaround time is going to be cut in half. Okay, and the last option, interestingly enough, that you see ticked there with no text next to it, basically says in the tooltip when checked that attempts to fix the graphical user interface repaint issues on the main window, while apparently messing them up on the config window. Anyway, below that we have a couple of options like choosing the engine start sequence. Many US regional operators start engine number 1 first, that's why I've ticked this option here. If you tick engineer walkaround, then the engineer would perform the walkaround versus the first officer. Pushback required only changes some of the ATC options. First flight of the day, well, checklists are different and you do the first flight, that's why we have this option. Receive load sheets basically explains itself. Auto climb sequence is one that allows the first officer to control the flaps during the climb sequence, and that is something that this particular airline seems to be doing. So the first officer is basically going to retract the flaps without a command for the captain in this. First officer ATC request, this is just a audio menu that would make the first officer request something, but we don't really get any sensible answers, so that's why I've disabled this. Okay, that is pretty much the important options. Boarding sounds, just toggled a couple of sounds. Pre-flight, event, ground services, toggles what is requested using the default flight simulator command. That is, to my knowledge, not compatible with GSX, so we're going to disable the jetway request, and all the rest is just going to be kept on. And we have some HTTP server options where you can basically open this panel on your mobile phone or tablet. Okay, that basically concludes our look into the options, and with all of that said, let's head right over into the flight deck of our CRJ700. And I'm going to start the pre-flight event countdown so that we can start with our pre-flight. So we can see now, 34 minutes to go, and do note that in this particular set of SOPs, the captain is doing a lot of the flicking of the switches, so don't be surprised if we are doing a lot of system configurations ourselves here. Okay, so for the originating check, nose wheel steering off, hydraulic pumps off, landing gear lever down, flap lever 0.
Alright, I'm out for the walk around.
Spoiler 0, radar off, park and brake set, ADG manual release handle stowed, emergency flaps normal, battery on, fire monitor test complete. So we have the fire lights. Actually not yet, the airplane might need a second to power up first, but here we go. Okay, the fire lights have been illuminated and we saw the indication there as well. Very good. So, with that we can establish AC power. And when the safety check flow is complete, we silently read the safety checklist to ensure all items are complete. So, as that is done, we do silently without actually reading it out. What is very nice to notice, once again, you will see it on the panel already, is that FS2Crew tells us all the steps we need to do to comply with the standard operating procedures. So this is something I really appreciate. It makes flying with FS2Crew so incredibly easy. Something I'm going to do outside of this check already is to turn on the IRS, because they do take quite a while to align. Approximately 10 minutes, that is.
Back from the walk around, all looks good.
Okay, so with that pretty much prepared, let's quickly load up our airplane. And for today's flight, we have 70 passengers booked and a couple of boxes and mail. So let's see what that turns into. We're supposed to have 60.4 is the zero fuel weight, and once again, this is in pounds, so don't be surprised if you see some huge values that you would otherwise not expect from such a small aircraft. Weather in Aspen, very good, only some high-level clouds, barely any wind, so we're going to go with the OFP fuel, which is going to be 6,000 pounds. Aerosoft CRJ, hit that set payload button several times so that it gets actually set. Okay, now that the FO is back, we can see our flow assist has changed here, so that we actually can perform the entire procedure, and note that this is performed by the captain. So basically, all the switches up here on, fire test performed, hydraulic shutoff valve not pressed, nav light can go on. Then moving on to the fuel panel, all switches deselected, bleed air normal, the bleed valves are set, APU off, start switches all off. Now coming down to the hydraulics, we have to perform the hydraulic system test. So we go to the hydraulics page. Now we switch all the pumps on. Check that we do have pressure down here. And with that done, we return all the pumps into off. And the systems are depressurizing themselves. Very nice. Okay, going on from there, we basically continue down the panel. Cabin pressure panel, that's going to be a little bit of turning with the high elevations of our airports in questions today. Departing Denver and landing in Aspen. Aspen especially got an elevation of 7,840 feet and Denver 5,400, so that's a little bit of turning. See what we have now, 3,700, so a little bit more turning. We're going to start with the departure field elevation in case we are doing an immediate return, so 5,440 is our initial target. Why did it jump to 6,000? Okay, 5,440. So, packs on, recirc fans on, and we turn the windshield heaters on and run the test.
Hi, the security and safety check are all done. Are we good to start boarding?
Yes, you can start boarding.
Thanks.
Okay. And with that, our pre-flight procedure is pretty much done. What is a little pity is that with the timer at X2, we lose the flow assistant up here once the cabin crew comes in to request boarding. But that's what it is at the moment. We can do the rest ourselves.
User bay overheat.
Okay, and for the rest of it, we gotta wait until the IRS is aligned, so we can go into the FMS now. Current nav database, we take the GPS position for our departure. Flight plan, we depart from Denver, and we land at Aspen. Our alternate is going to be Denver once again. And we are going to be the SkyWest 5240, which is a real-life flight operated several times a day on this route. So Denver, huge airport. The wind is calm at the moment, so we can just go ahead and pick whichever runway suits us best. And for that, I would say the runway that gets us the closest possible departure is going to be runway 25. So runway 25 it is. And we have the Connor 7 departure towards Werner. Execute that. And for the arrival into Aspen, we're looking at the localizer approach runway 15. And we don't need any of these transitions for the moment. And we have Delta Bravo Lima VOR on the route. Okay, that's going to be the setup for now. On the performance in it, we have 70 passengers on board, and what are we looking at? Cargo is 1,675. And the fuel 6,060. There we go. Cruise altitude 22,000, and the alternate cruise altitude in case we need to come back to Denver is going to be 21,000. Winds are pretty much calm today. Same for the standard atmosphere deviation. Going over into the VNAV page, transition altitude standard, cruise level 220, and transition level standard for the states as well. Finally, I will draw a 25-mile ring around Denver Airport for awareness of the MSA, and that pretty much completes our setup. So, I do like to have the window up here. This is my preferred nav display format. And once again, if you do feel like things are a little hard to read on the nav display, then yeah, that is the case indeed. It is a little bit difficult to read because the displays are so small in this aircraft. But if I go to a zoom level where you can read them very well, then you hardly see anything outside the cockpit. Like, I couldn't fly like this. But things are just about good enough to read them in a decent perspective like this as well. Okay. As we can see, we now have the pre-start check assists, and they basically give us landing elevation in the pressurization panel. Now we're going to use the departure elevation for that, and we'll change it in flight. Then any skid test, can't do that yet. Yaw dampers, can't do them yet either, but we can check the oxygen. Okay. So with all of that done, we can have a look into the departure briefing, and we do that with FS2Crew. So let's see. Weather is good, engine anti-air is not required, radar is not required. We'll use normal thrust. It is going to be an RNAV departure, and we do not have any threats for the departure. Okay, with that we can run the departure briefing.
Are you ready for the brief?
Go ahead.
Okay, the newest weather shows good conditions. We will plan to push and start for a 2-engine taxi. There are no hotspots along our taxi route. It'll be a left seat takeoff. Any ice is not required, and no need for radar today. We will plan on a normal thrust takeoff. Prior to V1, any master warning, engine fire, or failures will abort on the runway. After V1, we'll take it flying and fix it in the air and plan to come back here. If all goes well, we've got our clearance as filed and planning on a RNAV speed mode, nav mode departure. Any questions?
No questions.
Okay, that completes the brief.
Hi guys, here's the load sheet for you.
Thank you.
No problem. Have a safe flight.
Okay, so with the load sheet received, we can quickly check our final values in the FMS. And we have a gross weight of 66,434, and on the EFB it tells us takeoff weight 66,436. That's close enough for me. Takeoff trim 7.8 units. 7.8. And we are going to use the EFB to set the takeoff speeds for us, like this. Okay, let's quickly say hello to the passengers.
Ladies and gentlemen from the cockpit, this is your captain speaking. We'd like to extend our welcome on board to you today. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the flight.
At this point, we'd also have gotten our ATC clearance, so let's set our initial climb of normally 23,000 feet on this departure, but since we're cruising only at 22, we'll set it towards 22,000. Okay, and then we can read the pre-start checklist.
Pre-start check.
Stand by.
Now the first officer performs his
Fuel
flow,
quantity.
and now that he's ready, he starts the checklist.
Released with 6060 pounds on board.
6060 pounds. Confirmed. Cabin signs.
On.
Pressurization.
Set.
Altimeters.
2992. Set left and center.
2992. Set right and cross-checked. Flight instruments.
Autopilot set my side. 2000 in the pre-select. Heading 360. Set left.
Set right. Anti-skid test.
Complete.
Oxygen flow.
Check left.
Checked right. FMS.
Verified.
Radios.
Set left.
Set right. Takeoff brief.
Complete.
Pre-start check complete.
Okay, and that completes the checklist. Now, since the IRS is aligned, we can quickly engage the yaw dampers and the trims. That basically configures our aircraft for the departure. If we want to have a quick look into what we're actually doing, since FS2Crew is always conducting those rather general briefings, then let me give you a quick overview as well. And we are currently standing on the gates. Now, that gate I've chosen is actually where the real flight has last departed, and I know that a couple of you might have thought something like, hey, why do you use the jet bridge on the CRJs? And that is actually a feature of the real one, as you can hide the, or rather as you can retract the guide rails on the stairs so that the jetway can be connected. Okay, so having a look into our departure, we're parking over here. So basically here on Concourse Bravo, it's going to be a pushback with the nose to the left side. We'll taxi out via Bravo Sierra, Golf, and then on Golf we'll head all the way down to runway 25 for our departure. 3,600 meter runway, so no need to worry about anything in terms of runway length. And we have the Connor 7 departure, which is on a chart 10-3 Golf. Transition altitude 18,000, we've checked that, turbojets only. Speed restriction 250 knots or greater upon reaching 10,000. If slower speed is required to meet crossing restrictions, advise clearance delivery prior to taxi. Now that's not the case for us, we'll be able to make any of those restrictions without any problems. So, from the runway 25, we depart on the heading 263 to 5,934 feet, which we do have in the FMC down here as well. And then from there we're gonna continue to Foams, make a left turn towards Tavern above 12,000, onto Von above 14,000, then Thibaut, Connor, and Werner. And in here we have Thibaut, Connor, Werner, and the altitude restrictions are fitting. Okay, and that is pretty much the entire plan that we have for the day. So, FS2Crew is slowly finishing up as well, 6 minutes to go. We have already done the welcome PA, so let's get GSX to prepare our position for pushback and departure. Now, if you don't want to wait until the timer up here is run up, you can just click on it and that's going to fast forward.
Hey guys, all packs are on board. Are we cleared to close?
Yes.
Thanks. Let me know if you need anything.
Items under the seat in front of you to provide more room for larger items in our overhead compartments. If you need assistance, contact a flight attendant. If you are unable to accommodate any item in the cabin, please bring it to the boarding door and we will check it for you. Also, review the safety instruction card in your seat pocket. If you are seated at an exit seat, also review the exit seating criteria.
Departure check completed.
Alright, so that was the welcome announcement to the passengers. And we can see that at +2 minutes, FS2Crew has run forward into the departure or the engine start flow to tell us what to do. It told us a little bit earlier to start the APU, which I've done, but I didn't want to interrupt the announcement. So, let's carry out the procedure. Fuel pumps on. I'll just deselect the ground power up here. Fuel pumps on. Hydraulic 3A on. Beacon on. Nose wheel steering verified off. And let's have a look into the doors, which are all closed. And with that, we can complete the engine start check.
Engine start check.
APU.
On.
Takeoff data set 466432 pounds. V speeds are V1 130, VR 130, V2 138, VFTO 188, flaps 8. Set right.
Set left.
Trims engaged and centered. 7.8. Seatbelt and shoulder harness.
Check left.
Checked right. Hydraulic pumps.
Auto and on.
Beacon.
On.
Nose wheel steering.
Off.
Doors.
Closed.
Engine start check complete.
Okay, so FS2Crew asked us already to release our brakes, so let's quickly check that the ground equipment is removed. So doors are closed, the ground power can go, chocks can go, and the jetway, I don't know why this is still connected, but I guess GSX can't move it on the pushback sequence, so we'll just go like this. We'll just ignore that for now.
Commencing push. All engines clear. Start at will.
Something the flow didn't tell me earlier on is to put the hydraulic pumps in auto, but seeing that the checklist response was auto and on, I'll just put those in auto. Now when the engine start commences, that is something that is actually completely carried out by the first officer in this version of FS2Crew. So all that we do is command the startup, and then we are just going to monitor the indications. The first officer is himself going to press the engine starter, and at 20% N2 he will by himself turn on the fuel, and that's pretty much all we have to do. Okay, so we are clear of the gate area, so clear of any danger and ingesting any FOD that might have been on the gate. So let's go ahead and
Start engine 1.
Starting engine 1.
So the fuel has been turned on by the FO.
Set parking brakes.
Cockpit to ground. We have a good engine start. You can disconnect.
Engine 1 start complete.
Start engine 2.
Starting engine 2.
So is he eventually going to do something? Here we go.
Unlocking gear.
Now 20%, and you can see the fuel starts flowing. Here we go.
Tow truck disconnected. Bypass bin removed. Left is clear. Right is clear.
Engine 2 start complete.
Once again, ladies and gentlemen, welcome on board our flight today. This is the lead flight attendant speaking. Please direct your attention to the cabin crew for port safety.
Hey, looks like a good start to me. Now the flow assist tells me to press the flight control synaptic button to trigger the after start flow, but it seems to me like sometimes you need to do that twice for it to work.
Compliance with this information, as well as all crew instructions, lighted information signs, and posted placards.
Okay, ready for the flight control track, so let's go full up, full down, neutral, full left, full right, neutral, and after we have checked the rudder, the FO is also going to check the flight controls on his side.
Doors are clearly marked with exit signs and instructions for door operation.
This is the FO doing it right now.
Each door is equipped with an escape slide. Locate the exit nearest you. The nearest exit may be behind you. In an emergency, lights will illuminate the aisle.
Pre-taxi
Cabin
check.
is
APU.
pressurized. If there is a loss of cabin pressure, a panel will open and oxygen masks will appear.
Set.
Anti-ice. Set.
Remain
Electrics.
seated with your seatbelt
Checked.
fastened
Nose will
and
steer.
pull a mask toward you to start
Armed.
the flow of
Flaps.
oxygen. Oxygen
Flaps
will
8.
be
Set.
flowing
Flaps
to the
8
mask
confirmed.
each way
Flight
they
controls.
not inflate.
Check left.
Cover your
Check
nose
right.
and mouth
Pre-taxi
with the
check
mask.
complete.
Place the elastic band
Clear left.
around your
Clear right.
head and tighten by pulling on the end. Secure
The
your
lights
own
remain
mask
our
before
responsibility
assisting
here
others.
in this aircraft, so
Your seat bottom
that's
cushion
why
may
we
be
as
flotation
captains
device.
still have to
Pull up
handle
and
the
remove
lights.
the cushion. Upon exiting the aircraft, place
Okay,
your arms
and
around
off we
the
go.
cushion and hold on to the straps located on the back. This is a non-smoking flight. Smoking is not permitted in the cabin or lavatories. Cabin lights will now be turned off. Reading light buttons are located above your seat. Thank you for your attention.
For the taxi, we don't have all that much to do. Once we reach the runway, we are going to ask for the before takeoff checklist to the line, and then the first officer is going to give the command to sit down for the cabin crews, and only then we are going to run the checklist. So basically, approaching the runway, and with line-up clearance, we do the before takeoff checks to the line, and as soon as we get takeoff clearance, we do the before takeoff checks below the line. Taxi is set, fairly straightforward. Straight out onto the first taxiway going southbound, that's going to be Golf. Then we can follow that all the way to the runway. By the way, at this point, I really have to say Denver is a beautiful airport. Now, I'm not using the default Asobo Denver, but I'm using the Flight Beam Denver, which is an absolutely amazing scenery. Really recommendable. And no, I've not been paid to say that. When taxiing at this airport, we can really feel the high elevation. We're at almost 5,500 feet here, and you can see how I need quite a bit more thrust than I did in the previous video at Los Angeles or Santa Barbara, where we've been on pretty much sea level. But you can really see how we need a lot more thrust in order to keep the airplane moving here. Also, when I'm going to idle thrust, normally a CRJ at this weight would just keep rolling and might even start accelerating. However, over here, as soon as I'm in idle, we really start losing our speed. Okay, that's Golf to the left. And now we can go all the way to the end. So look at this, I've got 36% and 1 set right now, and look at how slow the airplane is accelerating. You can really feel that high elevation here. So, quick explanation for what is going to happen after the takeoff. Basically, we take off as normal, but be very careful when you give the set thrust command. So, in a lot of airlines SOPs, especially on other aircraft, you would only say set thrust once your engines are stabilized and you want the first officer to set your takeoff thrust. Not so in this airplane. If you do this using the button control version of FS2Crew, with the thrust levers being at such a low setting, like 40% or 50%, where we check for the engines to be stabilized, FS2Crew is going to initiate a rejected takeoff. We don't want that to happen. So, according to the manual, the correct procedure for the thrust is actually to set the takeoff thrust yourself, so put the thrust levers into the correct detent, and then call set thrust, so that your FO is going to verify that the thrust is set. A little bit confusing, but that's how it works. Also, after takeoff, we are going to command gear up, and the FO is going to retract the landing gear. If he doesn't do that, then do check that your option to use your hardware is not ticked. After that, we will call speed mode nav mode. When you're using button control, it takes it from the departure briefing down here, where we said the procedure is going to be an RNAV departure. If you had headings selected down here, then you would call for speed mode heading mode. In voice control, just choose the one that suits you. And then the FO is going to engage speed and heading mode. Next up, we're going to command the autopilot on, and then at 1,000 above the ground level, we are going to announce climb sequence. When we do that, the first officer is automatically going to retract our flaps based on our airspeed and how far above V2 we are, just like you would do it in the real CRJs. Note that there are no audio commands associated with this, so pretty much the entire climb checklist and the entire climb procedure is going to be done uncommanded, and the FO will announce flaps up when the flaps are up and is going to run the after takeoff checklist himself. And note that this check is performed silently, so if you don't hear all that much talking, that is all normal, and that is exactly what we expect to happen. Alright, let's go.
Before takeoff, check to the line.
Flight attendants, take your seat for departure, please. Cabin has been notified. Crossflow manual. Thrust reversers armed. Takeoff data set for runway 36. RNAV first fix identified. 2,000 feet pre-selected.
Set.
Fuel, mid-fuel confirmed. Takeoff config.
Checked.
Checked. For takeoff, check to the line complete.
Okay, the lights, again, are under our control, so we need to do those. And then let's do the...
Before takeoff check below the line.
Anti-ice.
Set.
Gas.
Checked.
Checked. For takeoff check below the line. Complete.
Okay, so let's synchronize that heading.
Runway heading check.
Check.
Now comes the famous set thrust command that I told you about earlier on. Okay, start the timer. Engines are stabilized.
Set thrust.
Thrust. $80 knots.
Checked.
V1. Rotate. Positive rate. Gear up.
Speed mode, heading mode.
Autopilot on.
So note how the flaps
Flaps
have been retracted.
After takeoff
Ladies
check.
and gentlemen, in just a few moments we'll begin our meal service for the flight. Please refer to the menu given to you on boarding for the 2 meal choices and your beverage choices available. We request that you keep the aisles clear to assist the flight attendants to serve you efficiently and also for your own safety. Thank you.
So at this moment we'll assume that we have been lifted off this 10,000 restriction over here at ohms. So we'll just continue the climb. Also be aware that since Denver is a high elevation airport at 5,500 feet, I'm going to delay switching the lights and the signs until we're actually 10,000 feet above the field elevation, so to make our lives easy, 15,000 feet. Also, I did a heading mode after takeoff. Not sure why I did that, but let's give ourselves a direct to foams, execute, and yeah. Overshot the route slightly. Now that was my mistake since I kept it in heading select for so long. So we are definitely high enough to release our cabin crew. And notice how now there basically is pretty much no talking going on at all anymore until we actually start our descent preparation. So that is something to keep in mind. In other words, don't worry if you don't hear any talking. That's by design, to call it that way. So, passing 15,000, let's start accelerating. We want to do 300 knots. And the lights, once again, are our concern, not the first officers. These fall in our area of responsibility in this standard operating procedure. And the sky is clear, let's release the seatbelts as well. Okay, this is going to be such a short flight that I will start the approach preparation already. So let's have a look into the approach that we are going to fly in Aspen. This, by the way, is my first time flying this approach as well, so you will see me working my way into this, just like you might have to do earlier as well. Looking into the standard approach procedure up here from Red Table VOR, we'll proceed towards Jagu, Kicker, and then Fimzu, and from there we start our descent towards Doipe. And notice this angle of descent here of 6.6 degrees, so we'll really be descending quickly after Doipe, and that's something we have to take care of. Passing the transition altitude, you might be wondering why the FO doesn't say anything, but that is actually once again according to the SOP that they modeled. So all of this info can be read up in the manual if you're interested, and I can really recommend you to do so, but just keep that in mind, that there really is no talking going on in the air. Well, a little bit in descent, but that's for another day. Okay, vertical speed, 2000 to go. We have 1000 to go. So let's see, frequency is 11115. If you are lazy like me, then you will just go over here on the radio page. So 11115 and 11155. Force is 151 and the minimum is going to be 10,960, so quite a high minimum there. Might take a little while to rotate that in, but better start now than later. Okay, so if I see that correctly, at Connor we already have our top of descent. And I do see that correctly, 7 miles to run. So before we start the descent, and before I continue setting that minima, which is certainly going to take a little bit of time, let's make sure to set the landing elevation so that our cabin pressurization can start setting itself up correctly. Now, landing elevation in Aspen is going to be 7,830. Let's see, 7,830 is set. Okay, so top of descent in 2 miles. Let's start putting the altitude down already. But what is important is that here in FS2Crew you do run the approach briefing prior to passing 18,000 in the descent. So we'll start our descent right now. And I'm just going to do the approach briefing in FS2Crew already. So let's see, we've got good weather. It is going to be a non-precision approach on a dry runway. We don't have any, well, we do have some threats, which is going to be the terrain. APU after landing, yes. Contact equipment, no.
Are you ready for the arrival brief?
Go ahead.
Our current weather shows nice VFR conditions, and we've got the arrival and approach for guidance in the FMS for descent planning to get down to the airport. It'll be an ILS approach. The runway is dry, and we take the first available turn and taxi to the gate per ATC instructions. Once clear, we can plan to start the APU for taxi in. Any questions?
No questions.
Brief complete.
Interesting that she said it's going to be an ILS approach, because most certainly it will not, and I did not select that. Let's quickly talk to the passengers as well.
Ladies and gentlemen from the cockpit, we will be starting our initial descent shortly. Again, thanks for flying with us today. We appreciate your business.
And the last thing, since we have overflown the top of descent already, we can also talk to the cabin crew and let them know.
Hi, it's Andy at L1. How can I help you?
Hi, just to let you know, we'll be starting our descent shortly.
Thanks for letting me know.
Okay, so one thing to note is that even though it says descent check up there on the FS2Crew panel, the descent check is more like the approach checklist in aircraft that you are used to. So when you are about to run that, then just keep in mind that you need to do it below the transition level. For us, flying in the US right now, that's not going to be too much of a problem. But if you were in Europe, for example, or in the Caribbean, or any other place with a very low transition level, then you might want to carefully time the point when you are going to run the descent checks. Also note this nice little bug. Looks like the CRJ is not programmed for MDAs above 10,000 feet. Okay, so set altimeter, well, 2992 we have in Aspen. That's set. And when running on this VNAV system, just be aware that it does not take any deceleration segment into account, so we still need to decelerate prior to overflying this.
At our destination shortly. If you are making a connection to another flight, please see the customer service agent meeting this flight or video monitors inside the terminal for connecting gate information. For your continued safety, flight attendants will now walk through the cabin to secure it for landing. We'll be collecting all service items, newspapers, and any other items you wish to discard or may not be taking off the aircraft with you. Also, in preparation for landing, please turn off all electronic devices. Stow these devices and then all other carry-on items. Please use caution when opening overhead bins as items may have shifted during our flight. Please stow your tray tables or return your seats to their upright positions and check the security of your seatbelts. We will be landing shortly. Thank you.
Okay. So let's slow the descent down a little bit, 1,000 feet a minute, so that we have sufficient time to level the airplane off and configure for landing. Initially we are going to level off at 15,000, and then we'll reduce our speed as we approach the destination area. Do note that it just looks to me like VNAV has acted up with that top of descent, because this is quite a low indication, seeing that we're supposed to be at Vanna at level 187. And certainly looking at the approach chart, we're expecting some terrain at about 12,000 feet. Looks like VNAV has actually played some trick on us. Anyway, let's go ahead and start the descent checklist.
Descent check.
Pressurization set. Fuel checked. Altimeters.
2992. Set left.
2992. Set right. Landing data. Set 4644 pounds. Thrust reversers.
Armed.
Lights.
Set.
Seatbelt sign.
On.
Seatbelt and shoulder harness.
Check left.
Checked right. Approach briefing.
Complete.
Descent check complete.
Okay, we are just going to level off the airplane over here. If you took a close look at the approach chart, you will have seen that the MSA would have been 15,700, but we are visual, so we can keep it at 15 as well. And that VNAV profile is definitely not correct over here. No idea why we should descend at 1,000 feet a minute right now. That would take us right into the terrain. So, quick briefing for you guys to tell you what we are about to do. And we are going to arrive in Aspen from the Red Table VOR. From there we'll make a left turn towards Finzo, which basically, seeing this as 3.4 miles, this is basically going to be a turn right onto the localizer. Then, passing Red Table, we'll stay above that terrain up here of 12,000 feet, so we're just going to maintain the altitude that we currently have. And I will slowly start getting the speed back, 250 knots initially, and then further. And once we're on the localizer, we have to pass Finzo at 12,300, thereafter we send 11,700 at Loipip, and then we're almost at the runway already. In other words, by Finzo we want to be established in the final approach configuration to make our lives a little bit easier. And that is pretty much the entire plan for the approach. The runway itself isn't literally the longest as well, 8,000 feet of runway, coming in on 1.5. We'll vacate to the left, most likely Alpha 5, and then we're right in front of the terminal. Okay, let's get the speed down, 210 knots. Okay, just make sure to actually set those speed boxes for the landing. Clean speed seems to be 190. Thereafter we'll start the flat retraction. The flat extension. 136 VREF, so 141 approach speed. And one thing to note is, or one thing that just comes to my notice here, is that it seems like the waypoints we have in the FMC actually mismatch the waypoints from our selected arrival. Let's try that once again. Block DME east from Delta Bravo Lima. That is what we're about to do. And we'll proceed from Delta Bravo Lima towards Jagu. Let's try to find that in here. And I can't really find Jagu, but that is not a problem. We are just going to use the DMEs for that. Not sure what's happening with the FMS. They're probably not set up correctly, but let's just go back to basic piloting and we'll just use the DMEs. Okay, we're at 190 knots. We'll start slowing down further and...
Flaps 1.
Okay, this actually looks correct on the front there. So, DBL, Jagu, Kicker, Finzo, that's what we're looking for. So 13,400 is our next altitude that we're looking for.
Flaps 8.
It is expected that we might get some sink rate warnings on the final due to the very steep descent angle. So we are mentally prepared for that and we'll keep a close eye on it. Okay, the airplane starts the final turn. Let's go heading mode. Localize the source and... oh no, it set the course. What is that? 1-5. And... nav mode again. 151 on the course. We have localizer intercept. And passing 13 miles, we can start our descent towards 12,300. And we'll maintain 12,300 until Fimso. And Fimso is at 9 dB, so in 2 miles. Down there is our airport, and if you say this looks high, then you are absolutely right, but that is how the approach is flown here at Aspen. So, lights on, cabin seated.
Flaps 20.
So, Fimso at 9 miles, and thereafter 11,700 towards Deupe. And we'll get the speed down to the final approach speed here.
Gear down. Flaps 30. Flaps 45. 4 landing check, complete. Landing gear.
Down, 3 green.
Spoiler 0. Flaps 45. 4 landing check, complete.
Okay, we are all visual. Autopilot disconnect. Keep that speed under control. And now comes the segment of the approach that I appreciate the most. So, set missed approach altitude, that's going to be 14,000.
Minimums.
Continue.
Landing.
Sync rate.
Yeah, we are aware of that.
Sync rate. Sync rate. Sync rate. Sync rate.
1,000.
Sync rate.
I'm aiming for a little bit before the runway, somewhere down here, so that we can eventually get into the PAPIs. And here come the PAPIs.
Sync rate.
500.
Here we go.
400. 400.
Sync rate.
300. 200. 100.
Sync rate.
50, 40, 30, 20.
Ninety knots.
Roger.
Alpha 5, that is what we aimed for. And here comes our gate, a set, very short taxi in. I'm taking it very slow on purpose right now to give the FO time to finish the after landing flow.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the conclusion of our flight. Please remain seated with your seatbelts fastened
Here we are.
until the captain has turned off the seatbelt sign and the aircraft is parked safely at the gate. This will be your
Personally,
indication
I hate it
about the cabin. Gather your belongings
to interrupt the
and
cabin
move
crew in
on.
their flow.
We'd
That's
like
why
to
I'm
thank you
just
for flying with us today.
staying here for a
Appreciate
second
it,
before
and
switching the
hope to
engines
see you
off.
again on a future flight.
Okay, here we go. They are done. So shutting down actually is our task. So thrust levers off. Signs off. Any ice off. Packs can remain on. Fuel pumps off. 3A pump off. Beacon off. Nose wheel steering off. And with that,
Shutdown check.
Shocks and brakes.
Out and on.
Seatbelt sign.
Off.
Anti-ice.
Off.
Packs.
Set.
Fuel pumps.
Off.
Hydraulic pump 3A.
Off.
Beacon.
Off.
Nose wheel steering.
Off.
Transponder standby. Shutdown check complete.
okay, and that's it. I would like to welcome you all to Aspen. Now, if you're about to say that was a very steep descent on the final approach, then I'm kind of with you. But looking at the chart and a 6.5 degree descent, I do have to say that this actually looked somewhat expected to me. That's why I continued the approach all the way to the end. Now, I sincerely hope that you have enjoyed the flight with us today and that you enjoyed the first look into FS2Crew. Now, the final thing that I have promised you guys that I would do is look into the landing rate monitor using SimToolkit Pro. So let's have a quick look into what we've actually flown. You can see our route from Denver was pretty much straight ahead onto the final. Now, let's get that landing details up. Takes a short while here. You guys know SimToolkit, it can be a little bit slow at times. Even though not normally that slow. But here we go. Let's view that landing report. Eventually. Come on, you can do it. I trust you. I'm not gonna cut this out, guys. I'm not gonna cut this out. Here we go. Okay. We've been sitting right on the marker. 83 feet a minute. And I don't trust that G-loading. But right on the marker, right on center line, 83 feet a minute. What else could you possibly demand? Okay, so thank you very much for flying. Now I'm going to go on and proceed back towards Denver, but that is going to be for another video. Thank you very much for joining, everyone, and I'm very much looking forward to welcome you all again on the next one.